Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa are making their own currency. This new currency is expected to be used for all trade transactions between their nations collectively known as BRICS, and it would effectively replace their need for transaction in US dollars. Currently, the US dollar is involved in almost 90% of international trade settlements, and the US alone commands around 24% of world GDP. However, the BRICS nations combined make up around 25% of world GDP, making this new currency a major step towards reducing the dominance of Western currencies like the US dollar or euro. While it's still unclear as to what the new currency will be called or when it will be launched, the announcement is already causing ripples in the global financial markets. So what do you think about this new currency? And is this a threat to the US dollar?
The BRICS alliance, which consists of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, is meeting in August in South Africa. And very high on the agenda is the creation of a new joint BRICS currency. Now, reportedly, the currency will be backed by commodities like gold, oil, and rare earths. And this idea is garnering much interest, with 20 nations applying to join the BRICS, including Saudi Arabia. And this all comes at a time as the trend to de-dollarize is accelerating. In 2001, 73% of global reserves were in dollars. That is now down to 58%. Meanwhile, several countries are formalizing bilateral trade agreements not using the dollar. China and Brazil, South America's biggest economy, have reached a deal to trade in their own currencies, ditching the US dollar as an intermediary. Argentina is paying for Chinese imports in yuan. India and Malaysia now use the rupee to settle trade. India has been buying oil in rubles, rupees, and dirham, and these are just some recent examples of the trend to trade not using the greenback. And the trend has hastened since Russia's invasion of Ukraine last year, with what many have called the weaponization of the dollar, including banning Moscow from the international SWIFT system.
Hey YouTube world, harvest is plenty, hope all is well. Thanks for stopping by, guys. I really appreciate your viewership. Make sure to go ahead and click the thumbs up button, give me a like. And if you're not a subscriber to the channel, please consider subscribing to the channel. So BRICS, this is where we're at. Everything is gathering up steam. You know, started off with Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. Now you have 21 nations looking to join BRICS. Even France is taking a look at joining BRICS as well. The ball is moving very fast, guys. As this Fortune article says, how long will the dollar last as the world default currency? The BRIC nations are gathering in South Africa this August with it on the agenda. So that's next month. And I talked about this before in a previous video on the coming cashless society. And so in case you guys are wondering, well, the reason why it's happening now is because they have increased their timeline. They moved everything up. The World Economic Forum and all these global elite leaders decided to push everything up. The Agenda 30 and Agenda 21 and Agenda 30, they moved everything up. They decided to quicken the pace and accelerate things.
This afternoon, the Secretary General and Klaus Schwab, the founder of the World Economic Forum, will witness the signing of a memorandum of understanding on a strategic partnership between the UN and the World Economic Forum, which outlines areas of cooperation to deepen engagement between the two institutions and to jointly accelerate the implementation of the 2030 Agenda.
So as you guys can see, they have accelerated the timeline and they are moving things up rather fast. And by doing this, they will catch a lot of people off guard. I mean, think about it. The average man and woman are totally unaware of what's going on and what's about to happen. You know, they're not really explaining things if you watch the news of what's the play here. The play is 3 words: New World Order. They're trying to build this one-world currency out to get ready for this beast system. And this thing is taking place, what I call a convergence of the coming UFO, UAP disclosure, a convergence of what the World Economic Forum said between now and the next 6 to 18 months, that there will be a cyber attack that's going to take down the entire grid. It's going to turn the lights out. Then when you look at Deagle's forecast, Deagle forecasted that America population, which is currently a little bit over 331 million, it said that America's population will be reduced by 68% by year 2025. Let that sink in for a moment. America's population will be reduced by 68% by 2025. That's what they forecasted. And some of you probably are saying, what is this guy talking about? Don't worry, I will do a video about that. Don't worry, it's coming. But it's some scary stuff. That's why I tell you guys to seek Jesus Christ and his mercy and his grace so he can see you through. You know, these people are beyond wicked and beyond evil. You know, and all the goals and plans that they have set, they will not accomplish it. They will accomplish some according to prophecy and revelation, but they will not accomplish everything. So don't worry about that. Now that I think about it, they put this stuff in the movie. It's called Rollover. It came out, I think, 1980, 1981. I actually have the DVD. It's an old movie, and it shows the devaluation of the American dollar. See, when they devalue the American dollar, guys, there's going to be some shocks to the system. And, you know, a lot of things in the financial markets are going to go chaotic. When you think about the retirement plans, the financial plans, the pension plans, a lot of that stuff, the American dollar being devalued is going to take down the value of all of these retirement plans as well. All the money that you got saved up in the banks and stuff like that, the value of that is probably going to come down. And I'll do another video strictly on the financial stuff later on as well. But just wanted to share this stuff to try to keep people aware of what's going on. This is going to be a complete system of control. They're going to control probably what you could purchase, probably where you could travel to, what type of groceries you could buy, and everything. And if you protest against the system or protest against government or anything like that, they probably just shut your digital currency off or shut your chip off or whatever they have. So many of us are going to be living outside the system, and we're going to have to find a way to work with the system and outside the system as well. Another video for another time. Let me stop talking because I don't want to keep this long, but just check out the rest of the video. I will be back with part 2, so please stay tuned for part 2. And until next time, thank you guys. Love you guys. God bless.
So I think you need a new world order, that China has to be part of the process of creating it, and they have to buy in. They have to own it the same way as, let's say, the United States owns the Washington Consensus, the current order.
And what about the American concern that aiding and abetting this move away from the dollar as the world's reserve currency ultimately means a weakening of the U.S. economy?
It is not necessarily in our interest to have the dollar as the sole world currency, because as the world economy grows, it needs additional currency. And if the dollar is that additional currency, it means that the U.S. has to have a chronic current account deficit, and that is not appropriate. So I think it's in our interest as well to reform the system. I think this is a healthy, if painful, adjustment that the world has to go through. But the system we have now has actually broken down, only we haven't quite recognized it. And so you need to create a new one. And this is the time to do it.
The world has to overcome not only the damage done to our economies and our societies by COVID-19, it also has to confront the repercussions of a dangerous clash between major global powers. History is truly at a turning point. We do not yet know the full extent and the systemic and structural changes which will happen. However, we do know that global energy systems, food systems, and supply chains will be deeply affected. In times of crisis, the role of governments is more important and more relevant than ever.
Out of everything terrible, something good will come if you look hard enough for it. I think this presents us with some significant opportunities to make some real changes. You know, we are at an inflection point, I believe, in the world economy. Not just the world economy, in the world. It occurs every 3 or 4 generations. And now is a time when things are shifting. There's going to be a new world order out there. And we've got to lead it. And we've got to unite the rest of the free world in doing it.
As we tackle this crisis, our efforts cannot be a series of independent initiatives running in parallel. The scale and scope of the threat we face call for a global systems-level solution based on radically transforming our current fossil fuel-based economy to one that is genuinely renewable and sustainable. So, ladies and gentlemen, my plea today is for countries to come together to create the environment that enables every sector of industry to take the action required. We know this will take trillions, not billions of dollars. We also know that countries, many of whom are burdened by growing levels of debt, simply cannot afford to go green. Here we need a vast military-style campaign to marshal the strength of the global private sector. With trillions at its disposal, far beyond global GDP, and with the greatest respect, beyond even the governments of the world's leaders, it offers the only real prospect of achieving fundamental economic transition.
Know that they're involved in a secret financial manipulation and that they want it kept secret. And so I'm prepared to trade, Mr. Naftari, my silence in exchange for Wintercam.
But you have Wintercam.
Our contract has to be renegotiated so that if Borough National goes under, I don't lose my company to the Saudis. My silence is the only leverage I have.
Forgive me, but silence about what? Some secret financial manipulation? You expect them to believe me if I use those words?
Walter, you cannot pull $95 million in one chunk from a bank the size of Borough National. When I undertook to manage this plan, you agreed to do it gradually in small amounts. You're now starting to move billions in a matter of weeks.
The world economic situation is deteriorating more rapidly than we had thought. We don't think we can afford to wait, Max.
There will be no collapse in the foreseeable future unless you panic and start it with some damn fool move like this.
And if you are wrong, what then? We wake up one morning, our oil is gone. We find that we have sold all we have in exchange for paper money that is worthless.
When the Arabs learn that word of what they've been doing is out, they may panic, move a big chunk of funds too fast or the wrong way, really destabilize the monetary markets. Then the dollar will collapse. Whereupon there'll be a lot of jawboning by the president, and that won't work. Then they'll go to selling gold, and that won't work either. Then they'll have to go to capital controls, freeze foreign assets, stop any money from going in or out, and that will be the end of all the markets. That'll really be the finish. Then you'll see a worldwide depression that'll make the 1930s look like a kindergarten. In 2 months, you'll have bread lines in Detroit, riots in Pittsburgh. In 6 months, you'll see grouse right over Rodeo Drive, and Michigan Boulevard, and Fifth Avenue, and I won't have done it, Hub. You will. All because you tried to stop a movement that couldn't be stopped anyway. Listen to me, Hub. Money, capital, has a life of its own. It's a force of nature, like gravity, like the oceans. It flows where it wants to flow. This whole thing with the Arabs and gold is inevitable. We're just going with the tide. The only question is whether you want to let it go like an unguided missile and raise hell, or whether you want to keep it in the hands of responsible people. Keep it channeled. Keep it quiet. Believe me, Hop, the dollar will hold. Believe me. The system will be fine, providing nobody panics.
It began 8 days ago when a group of Arab investors withdrew billions of dollars from U.S. banks. That in turn started a chain reaction on the world money markets. Dollars, pounds, marks, francs, yen. Not one currency escaped. This scene outside a Manhattan bank was duplicated all over the world as people saw their life savings become worthless in a matter of hours. Good evening, I'm George Page in New York, and this is another in our series of reports on the world economic crisis. The growing paralysis of the industrial world has left millions without jobs, without money, and without hope. Crowds of unemployed poured into Washington yesterday. They stood in silent protest before the nation's leaders. At the same time, more than 1 million people packed St. Peter's Square, where the Pope urged calm and nonviolence. The pontiff asked for prayers for world leaders, prayers and peace and reason. But the last 24 hours have been marked by growing protests and ever-increasing violence. Last night, demonstrators burned American currency in front of the White House, and attempts to put out the fires led to a confrontation with police. Every hour, from every corner of the globe, there are new reports of outraged crowds demanding action. A bankrupt world seems to be teetering on the very edge of anarchy.
And now for continued coverage from around the world. A statement was issued from the OPEC meeting today that the leading oil-producing nations would resume oil exports as soon as the international monetary markets have stabilized. The panic has spread across political and philosophical boundaries. The USSR and the developed Eastern European communist countries dependent on Western trade and capital have witnessed the same riots that have taken place in the West. The Economic Summit Conference tomorrow will be attended by leaders of the West, the East, and the Third World. Said one, there is a need for a unity of purpose and resolve unequaled since the end of World War II. At this time of crisis, there has been a turning to the past as well as the future. Words spoken by President Franklin D. Roosevelt in the depths of the Depression were quoted in the Senate today. This is preeminently the time to speak the truth, frankly and boldly. Nor need we shrink from honestly facing conditions in our country today. This great nation will endure as it has endured, will revive and will prosper. We face our common difficulties. They concern, thank God, only material things. Each age is a dream that is dying, or one that is coming to birth.